I don't know. I'm just a little tired, okay? I am tired of having so many connecting Marvel films. I'm kidding. No, I want to talk about Deadpool Wolverine. Phenomenal movie, and there's a lot to discuss. There's some Comic Con shit that happened, and we're gonna get into all of it. Okay, so welcome to Animus Chase Podcast. I appreciate you being here. How are you? What's going on, dude? Okay, it's very aggressive. I don't know why I'm coming in hot. I don't know why. But I do know that I watched Deadpool Wolverine. I am going to discuss spoilers. I feel like I should probably say that in the tip top of all this. So if you have not seen it, please do not watch this part, okay? Because it's just going to be spoiler city. And let me tell you something. This is a movie, if you are a fan of Marvel, if you've been a fan of Deadpool, if you've been a fan of X-Men in any way, shape, or form, or Wolverine, period, you might want to skip this. Or there's chapters in this vid. Just skip over it, and then move on ahead to the Comic-Con coverage, okay? So, Deadpool Wolverine is kind of like a... what's crazy is I think it's been like over 5 years since Deadpool 2. And it was kind of like one of those things where I wouldn't have guessed or thought that Deadpool would even enter the MCU proper, like, at all. And I don't fully know if Deadpool is in the MCU proper. I mean, they played it with some MCU proper shit like the TVA and whatnot, which is really cool. But yeah, I don't know if this movie is going to like reset everything, or at least like give a sort of like, I don't know, like a guidance to where the other future MCU movies are going to go towards and whatnot. I don't really know, but what I do know is that watching this movie was kind of like a crisis, just because of the fact that, like, before I saw the movie, it was like I had to dodge so many goddamn spoilers across all kinds of social media. Like every social media, between TikTok to Twitter to even fucking Facebook. And before you get into it, I use Facebook for work, okay? It's just where I get my gigs sometimes. And Instagram, but neither here nor there. All equally spoilerific. And I had one thing almost spoiled. One thing, it was so close to spoiled. So close. And that was in the beginning, where when Deadpool was kind of traversing through all the different universes to find a Wolverine anchor to bring to his universe, which is MCU universe, to replace what happened in the end of Logan. I think that was like back in 2017, which was like a crazy good, awesome end to what was Wolverine, essentially. At least I thought it was a great ending. There's a few people who I know who did not like that for some reason. I don't know why. But this was a very good way to essentially like get another Wolverine to essentially join in on the action of Deadpool. And I enjoyed it a lot. But the one thing that was almost spoiled was Henry Cavill coming in as Wolverine, as one of the variants of one of the many variants. And I'm glad it wasn't fully spoiled, because like I did see something about Cavill, and I was like, kind of, but I thought, like, I also saw like other names as well that had nothing to do with the movie, because I kept glazing right over it. It's just so I don't get my shit so spoiled. But the movie was like, it didn't feel like its runtime, but I appreciated that it kept it within the 2-hour limit. I thought it was going to be like a 2.5, almost 3 hour kind of romp. And no, it was like 2 hours and some change. And the movie sped right through that, and just from the top, the runtime is phenomenal. Like I feel like most Marvel films, I'm just burping today, dude. I don't know what is happening. Okay. I'm so sorry about that. And we're leaving it in because, it's the Adam is Chase pod. You know what it is. So the runtime was great. The music is out of control. Every single Deadpool movie, I gotta say, like nobody really gives credit to the soundtrack, but the soundtrack is great in this one too. I mean, like the first song we got was "Bye Bye Bye" by NSYNC, and yeah, you bet your fucking ass I remember the entire fucking dance from when I was a child, bro. Okay, and seeing that just kind of come into action right after Deadpool exhumed the grave of Logan, who passed away at the end of Logan. Spoilers, by the way. If you haven't seen Logan, good God, you know what I mean. But seeing him exhume that grave, and then just using the adamantium bones from Wolverine to just like fuck up the TVA was absolutely phenomenal. It's so great. Angel of the Morning by Merrily Rush and the Turnabouts. It's a great one. They played Fergie. They even got, and I didn't, for some reason, like I'm not a big Goo Goo Dolls fan at all, but I immediately recognized when they played Iris, like, because Iris was like one of those songs that was just so overplayed in the radio that I felt like it was a good little touch to the overall soundtrack. So I had no problem with it. And I feel like too with most of these songs, for some reason I feel like I don't know if it's the writers, and if it is, good job on y'all. Because I feel like Ryan Reynolds really have put in his 2 cents into what this soundtrack is supposed to be. And it works every single time. It works. I mean, even with the trailer too, with Madonna's song, they played it like a couple times in the movie as well, and I thought it was great. I thought we were gonna get old soundtracks coming back and whatnot, and I'm glad they didn't. And then, my God, I had no idea that they were going to pull on my heartstrings when they played Good Riddance by Green Day. It just, again, like just shot me back to early 2000s of just like playing Green Day nonstop. Like I had Dookie, I had American Idiot, I had Nimrod, I had Dookie, Nimrod, I had American Idiot, and I think that was it. I thought I had more, but I know I had those 3. And yeah, this is just like all in my old days of listening on my CD Walkman, which is crazy to say. I know. I had a CD Walkman, dude. Like, that thing was so indestructible. It was a Sony Walkman, and I forgot. I got it one Christmas, because I had like, a few CDs. And mind you, this was like early 2000s, right? So iPod was like coming in like sort of like, I think but I could never afford it. Or my family couldn't afford it when I was a child. So I didn't get an iPod till like 2006 or 2007, something like that. And yeah, I abused the shit out of that Walkman. I had and that's the thing too, is like I couldn't carry around a bunch of CDs with me. Although like a few of my friends did, which they were out of their minds for. But like I remembered like going to school or like going anywhere out with my family and whatnot. I always had that Walkman. But the thing was that you only had one CD at a time. So if it wasn't like a burn CD that I made, shout out to LimeWire, I had, just like full albums, and I would stick with those albums all day, and I would just listen to it back to front and front to back. I even had, speaking of music, I even had, Metallica's Saint Anger. And that was not a great purchase, but I definitely listened to that album a lot. And I don't know why I did, because the only two songs that I really liked was Frantic and Saint Anger. And then a little bit of Dirty Window. But like the thing that I hated the most with Saint Anger was Lars's fucking drumming with that like hollow snare. It feels like a fucking gunshot every time it's like hit and whatnot. If you listen to the album, you know exactly. Listen to Frantic, because there's a lot of those drums, but I mean it's all throughout that album. But it was just horribly mixed. It sounded gross. It overpowered like the guitars, the bass, like everything. And that was like the first album Robert Trujillo played bass for, before or after Jason Newsted. So yeah, I thought that was like such a fucking waste. But anyways, getting back to Deadpool, okay? I feel like the movie really fucking did a phenomenal job in terms of like going through the, multiverses, because the problem with the multiverses is that Endgame and Infinity War really honed in and did what they had to do with the story. Written by Marcus and McFeely, directed by the Russo brothers, of course. And I felt like jumping in between the universes was kind of like a no-brainer in a way, especially with Endgame. So yeah, I felt I was a little apprehensive going into this, because I knew that Wolverine would have to be from a different universe, and he is. However, they did it in a way that didn't feel like, it convoluted the story in any way. And it was so overpowered by jokes that you just sort of like, because the premise is pretty much simple, right? It's just like Deadpool's timeline is missing an anchor, and they need it, or else the universe, at least his universe, with the Avengers and all that would I think go away for some reason. I didn't and I've only watched it once since I've seen it. But and I saw like other YouTubers' coverage on it, between Christian Harloff and Real Rejects, and Coy Jandro, the only comic bookman that we need to protect at all costs. I think that the pacing of it as well was phenomenal. Like I said, that 2 hours just went by really fucking quick, and also another thing about the soundtrack, just to wrap that up, I don't like when Marvel or any other like movie does this, where they release the soundtrack before the movie releases. Like, that was a thing that really made me mad the most with Guardians of the Galaxy 3, was that they released the soundtrack, like, I think it was like a few days before the fucking movie came out. And I was like, this is spoiler territory. Are you kidding me? You know? And I know, like, a lot of people are like, what? Like, a soundtrack? Like, why would that spoil the story? It spoils the story because, like, you want to be surprised in when they play these songs. And that's how I watched it from the first Guardians all the, like, into the second and then the third. Like, that's just what it is. You know, because you just want to see the story unfold with its soundtrack, with its score, with its story and everything. I feel like that's very fucking important in my opinion. So yeah. So moving on, simple premise, nonstop jokes. I feel like my favorite joke was sort of in the beginning, when Paradox, Matthew McFadden, by the way, holy shit, Tom Wamsgams from Succession, basically is like a British Tom Wamsgams, you know, just you know, without the all like the you know, explicit shit. Even though it's a Deadpool movie, you know, he still like dropped a few F-bombs and whatnot, but like he played Tom in a couple, like in a certain way. I loved it. So when Paradox mentioned that, like, you know, you will, like, to Deadpool, you will be the one to save the universe. And Deadpool, of course, breaks the fourth wall. He brings the camera close and he yanks a boom pole and says, fuck you, Fox. I'm going to Disneyland, and head bashes the fucking camera, breaking the fourth wall and running away. It was just like the timing of that joke and everything about it was so perfect. It was so good. I know, like, a few people will probably be like, there's plenty of, like, better jokes than that. But I don't know, man, because that joke fucking hit hard. Like, it shook the theater that I was in Alamo. A lot of people loved that shit. And I loved it. I couldn't stop laughing at it. So, yeah, I think the jokes were great. Because it's a Deadpool movie, right? And I felt like in Deadpool 2, it was a lot of that. And it kind of diluted the story a little bit, but like at the same time, it was like, well, it's a Deadpool movie. You're not supposed to take it seriously. It's kind of what it is. Although there are like a lot of serious moments, especially in Deadpool Wolverine. You know, even Wolverine's like, you know, character arc. And we're gonna get to that in a little bit, but let's just get into the fucking supporting characters and the side characters, because Jesus Christ. And I know I'm gonna be missing a few. I do have the Wikipedia pulled up, but I'm just for, you know, my subconscious sake, I don't want to, you know, divert all throughout this episode. And also I got to cut this short because I gotta get back to work. So the characters were great. The first one, Chris Evans, came back, right? And he had like the blue and a little bit of red accent like suit with like a poncho, like a poncho kind of thing, because it's all in the void, right? So it's like sort of like post-apocalyptic kind of, you know, situation going on. And seeing him pop in and all of us expecting him to, you know, go like Avengers Assemble, you know, and then he just fucking goes flame on and just shoots in the sky. It is just like, it was one of those things where I was like, this is everything that I want it to be. Because like with the cameos, what I was worried about was that like there's going to be a chock full of cameos, like a shit ton of cameos, but none of them actually like having like any supportive value to the story itself. But they didn't do that in this movie. They literally went and meticulously chose the characters to be in the film and made sure that they all have like a supportive like dialogue and through line. There's a little bit of a character arc in each of them, a little bit, and it felt great, especially Chris Evans's part, even though it was kind of cut short. And to Deadpool's joke, they couldn't afford Chris Evans throughout the entire movie. So yeah, I thought those scenes were just phenomenal, you know, between Johnny Storm talking about the oh god, Xavier's sister, and it's gonna destroy me, and I'm forgetting her name. Cassandra Nova. Yeah, Cassandra Nova, and I should know that name because I watched X-Men 97 twice. So yeah, I thought Chris Evans is talking shit, you know, Johnny Storm talking shit about Cassandra Nova, and then Deadpool just immediately ratting him out, to then have the button scene, like the post-credit scene, be him confirming that he was talking shit. Because at first you're like, okay, why would he say all that? That's crazy. And then just to have it all confirmed by the button scene was just so fucking funny. It was great. So yeah, I thought all that was phenomenal. And then we get to probably some of the most important characters that were living in the void, which we got fucking Jennifer Gardner back as fucking Elektra, man. That threw me for a loop. And I gotta say, I barely remembered Elektra, and I did not like Daredevil. I did not like that movie. It was so flashy. It was so over the top. Just kind of like the X-Men movies in a way, where like I didn't bother watching the previous X-Men films, but I did watch Days of Future Past because the last time I saw that movie was in theaters. And for some reason, when I watched it again, like the night before seeing the movie, it was still a Bryan Singer over the top, like kind of weird fucking movie. And like even some of the characters that were in it, like you brought back Halle fucking Berry as Storm, bro, and she barely got any screen time. And then by the third act, she was already fucking gone. It was like, I don't know. It really rubbed me the wrong way with that movie. There's so many choices, but for some reason, when I watched it in theaters, and I was in high school at the time, I just thought that like it was so fucking cool. Like it was such a great, awesome fucking movie. Actually, did it come out in I want to see. Oh, no. Sorry. It was year after. I was in college before I dropped out. So, never mind. So I technically was in school, but I was in college. So, community college to be exact. So yeah, I definitely loved like everything about those characters, especially Carmen Electra. Just Electra. I don't know why I said Carmen Electra. It's crazy. She had nothing to do with the fucking movie. Electra, played by Jennifer Gardner, was great. And secondly, the one that threw me for a fucking loop was motherfucking Blade coming back. Wesley Snipes back as fucking Blade. And let me tell you something, phenomenal. Just great. Especially seeing that, like, if you guys are like BTS nerds like myself, not the group, but you know, behind the scenes footage shit. Like I love watching special features on DVDs and whatnot. Like that's the whole reason why you get the DVD, in my opinion, was to see all the special features, you know, the special features, or I call them features as I like to say it. it was phenomenal. It's great. Like I knew that like the BTS for Blade Trinity, you can definitely see that Ryan Reynolds was also in that movie, and that like he was a little too much for Wesley Snipes. He's like a little too jokey. When every single scenario, almost every single movie shoot that I've been in, have always like have some sort of like funny characters in it, or it would be me being the fucking goofball on set. Like that's just what makes like a movie set so special and so great. And you can tell too, everybody in Deadpool Wolverine had a great fucking time with this, and so did Wesley Snipes. Despite the fact that he was a supporting character, he still fucking ruled. So I love Wesley Snipes in it. His action sequences were great, along with Elektra's. It was all so fucking wonderful, so good. And then the creme de la creme of all the supporting characters, Channing Tatum back as Gambit. Not back, but finally playing Gambit, which was like announced years ago. This was like, I want to say almost 10 years ago, because there was definitely a Comic-Con where I was hyped to see that like, oh, there's going to be more like X-Men shit, and Gambit was going to be part of it, Channing Tatum's Gambit. And you can tell he put in his heart and fucking soul into it, and it was just like it never came to fruition. And then finally in Deadpool Wolverine, it does come to fruition, despite it, these characters being part of the Void. He still had like phenomenal dialogue. He was hilarious as like a thick, Louisiana Cajun Bayou accent. I thought he did great. Like I know a few people wanted to clown on him. I thought he did great, especially with the dialogue that nobody could understand, and Deadpool was just like, I what is with you? So yeah, I thought that was awesome. And seeing them all in action fighting the X-Men, I want to say variants, but I recognize Pyro a little bit, barely though. And it finally occurred to me that I was like, oh, that is fucking Pyro. It was so funny. I loved it so much. So yeah, seeing them all fight was great. And seeing Gambit, like I was worried too about Gambit, because like it's very easy to make Gambit like very like cheesy and very, kind of, because he's just like shooting cards everywhere and shit like that, right? So seeing him actually like do all that, but it looks fucking awesome, was such a mind trip. Just because it's like we're seeing like a couple of different movies in one movie essentially. So it was fucking awesome. I loved every single minute of it. And I know I keep hyping it up with like saying like, oh, this is phenomenal, this was great, this was phenomenal. I will say that there were parts of the film that I was like, oh, I wish there was a little bit more to that, right? So a couple of these, I would say Wolverine first and foremost. I wish, because X-23 did come back as like the leader between the between Gambit, Blade, and Elektra. And so seeing her, and I think she went by Laura, I think in the film. Let me know if I'm wrong. It's been a minute. So I thought to myself, well, this is just fucking phenomenal, right? And when Wolverine and X-23 had that little campfire scene, and her explained that like her Logan in her world was like, the X-Man, like he was the shit, and we all, as the audience, of course, agreed. Even though that there was a shit ton of Wolverine films, it still felt like, like it was like a real loss, right? Especially with Logan. I just wish that this Wolverine variant from a different universe, we would see the story that unfolded, what Wolverine explained, coming home piss drunk, and seeing all the X-Men just gone. I wanted to see a little more of that. I wanted to see like a little more coverage on it, just to hammer home how important, as much as we see how Deadpool is important in this premise, in this storyline. Wolverine also has, an equal amount of loss and like kind of reconciling that consequence, and then him coming, full circle and helping, Deadpool essentially fix the timeline, was a special moment. And that could have hit a lot harder had we seen Wolverine's story in his universe. So I wish we would have saw like a little bit of that for sure. Another miss for me, I had it in my brain and I didn't write it down like a fucking dummy. I'm trying to think. I mean, well, the premise, the premise is a very simple premise. Could have been a little more interesting. I mean, sure. Oh, the one other thing that I felt, and this is in fact important, so important, Adam, that you forgot about it. Yes, because my brain forget shit. This is what happens when you're a stoner. So I felt like Vanessa's story, we didn't really get a satisfying like arc with that, despite that at the end of it, Deadpool said, I did this for you, which is powerful, but it could have been, again, a lot more, just like Wolverine, knowing his past. We could have seen a little bit more between their relationship, and I kind of understand why, just because it's like there's so much to cover in a 2-hour like time frame, which is a lot. I get it, and you gotta have like the Deadpool variants like all show up, which is also equally fucking awesome. And that entire sequence was hilarious and great and amazing action. And the one thing that I did not like when it came to fight sequences, like, and I talked about this with the boys and a little bit with Acolyte, was just keeping the camera steady, or at least like on a dolly, and don't have like, and Acolyte did this fairly well, just not have it all steady cam and it's all shaky and whatnot. There was a sequence, I think it was when they were first in the void, Deadpool and Wolverine, when they first got into the void, like I felt like there was a lot of camera shakiness, and I was like, I could have, it's okay. It's still cool. It was in the trailer, like it was still like kind of cool to see it, but like seeing that, sequence with the City Street and all the Deadpool variants, and just having like that slow dolly, not pan, but I guess slide, sort of like in the vein of the hallway sequence in Old Boy. I thought it was fucking great. I thought that entire sequence was great. It felt engaging, and it felt exciting because there's so much shit to look at, of course. And with the second viewing, I probably would have maybe a different opinion on it. But regardless, I still felt like it was a lot of fucking fun. Like a shit ton of fun. Right? So, yeah, man. The action was so fucking solid. And now that I talked about the Deadpool variants, what a crazy display of so many fucking people between, Blake Lively voicing Ladypool. And I will say, I was part of that whole resurgence of people who thought that it was, going to be Taylor Swift, right? Because, why would Deadpool Wolverine show up to was it Super Bowl? I don't know, but a football game with the Kansas City Chiefs, T Swift territory, baby, you know. Yeah, I thought she would probably make an appearance, and I think somebody wrote, and I don't know, I might have missed it, but I read somewhere on Twitter that like T Swift was playing in the soundtrack. I didn't hear that, but I'm also not a huge T Swift fan. I like a couple of her songs, but that's basically about it. Don't come at me, Swifties. I respect you and I appreciate you. Okay. So, yeah, I felt like, the Deadpool variants were all great, and I was scared that it was like going to be like just way too, balls to the wall, like, crazy shit. And it was still balls to the wall, but it was still contained well enough that like, the comedy beats still hit, especially like every Deadpool has a Peter. I thought that concept was genius. I thought that was hilarious. Shout out to Peter. Shout out to Rob Delaney, I think that's his name. Great comedian, by the way. Like he had a comedy special years ago that was just so like one of my favorite specials. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it for sure with all those variants, and I completely miss Matthew McConaughey as Cowboy Pool, which is hilarious. I don't know if they suited up, but you like after thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that did sound like Matthew McConaughey. As much as I don't know if Blake Lively like suited up, if she did, phenomenal, and if McConaughey did, phenomenal. I don't know if they did though, but regardless, it still was a lot of fun. Yeah, and I'm trying to think of like any other misses. Yeah, I think like I think that Vanessa thing was sort of like a big. It was like the whole reason why Deadpool is kind of does what he does, right? And that was part of the plot. Was that like Deadpool was or at least Wade Wilson was ready to just like kind of give up the whole Deadpool thing, and that's kind of part of the reason why Vanessa was not with him. Is because he lost that magic. He lost what he was destined to be, especially going through what he went through, even in the first Deadpool film, of just trying to get away from cancer and made himself into an experiment, essentially. And so I thought that could have hit a little harder, for sure. But overall, yeah, I think the movie was solid. I loved the action. I loved the music, the jokes. I was worried it was going to be too much. It wasn't at all. Which is why, like, I gave it. I definitely gave it like a light 9 for sure. Not a a hard 9. Soft 10. It was a light 9. I'm sure if I watch it again, it'll probably be like more of a 9.5, but it like, it was definitely much in like the 9.1 to 9.4 region. I really, really, really enjoyed it. There were just like a couple points that could have made it fucking spectacular, but it doesn't matter, right? Because like you're constrained with the runtime, and you're also don't want to over embellish on story arcs that don't need to be embellished like at all, since it is a Deadpool movie. It's just about him and him alone, and with Wolverine. Especially like having Wolverine in the title, I would assume that like Wolverine had like you would see like a history with the other Wolverine variant, from a different universe that joined Deadpool. I felt like there could have been a lot more said from that. But regardless, like I felt like it was a light 9, great fucking movie, So, yeah, man. That's about it for the Deadpool coverage. Now, I want to get into Comic-Con. I was going to dedicate a whole podcast episode just on Comic-Con alone. And after seeing, like, because I thought there was a lot that was going on with Comic-Con, and it turned out it really, like, wasn't. It was just like, it was mostly just like Marvel coverage, which I know I'm probably missing like a lot between like other panels and whatnot. I'm sure there was other shit that was like there was like other shit that was like going on essentially. So yeah, it was just mostly like Marvel stuff. First and foremost, the one that stuck out, of course, like the biggest one out of Comic-Con weekend was RDJ, Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Doctor Doom, not as Iron Man, not as Tony Stark, but as Doom. And I watched a little bit of Real Rejects, and I saw that because I didn't know this, that like there were few comics that had like runs between like moving between characters and whatnot, and there was like a comic where it was I think it was like Doctor Doom that turned to Iron Man. He still had like the Doctor Doom like attitude and personality, but he donned the Iron Man suit, which I guess isn't far off, right? But like at the same time, it's like I watched Iron Man back in 2008, and for 11 years, I've been with that character, and of course Deadpool as well, for several years. But Iron Man was definitely like one of those movies that like really opened up my imagination to like what good comic book movies can look like. Because before that we had X-Men and we had Spider-Man and we had Blade, of course. But it definitely felt like and Blade was a better series, despite that I still think that Spider-Man 2 is one of the best Marvel films ever. Yeah, I've grown up with this character for so long, and the end that happened in Endgame was like the most beautiful, heartbreaking, but justified ending, especially like letting the audience even like participate in the funeral, seeing all of the heroes, in one shot, just saying their last goodbyes to Tony was incredible. It was one of the most monumental cinematic experiences that I've had. Even though people like to clown on Marvel, and I do too, especially, Scorsese saying that, Marvel isn't cinema, which, whatever. I have an opinion, but yeah, it's just, we don't have time to get into that. Maybe for another episode. But I felt like, I felt like we already had that ending with Tony. And, granted, this is a different character. It's Doctor Doom. RDJ's still coming back, and I don't know how I feel about it. And it kind of plays into that joke in Deadpool where Deadpool said that, like, oh, we're going to squeeze every little bit of juice and time with all of these characters. So you best fucking believe that RDJ was going to come back. And I wish it wasn't so. And then literally that day when I saw Deadpool Wolverine, like when I came back, from the theaters, it was announced that RDJ is back. And I was like, okay, I don't know. Like I was so in that Russos were coming back, right? For the fifth Avengers or the sixth, or yeah, I think it's the fifth Avengers. Like coming back for Avengers 5 and then, Secret Wars being Avengers 6. I thought was a smart move. You know, considering that they did so well with Winter Soldier, and Civil War, and then of course the Infinity Saga. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm still wrapping my head around it. I guess it's just one of those things where I'm like, is it necessary? I don't know. And also, like, I'm pretty sure Doctor Doom like wears the mask like 100% of the time. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. I'm sure like he has shown his face every once in a while, but like, some of the comic books that I've read, like anytime there's a Doctor Doom mention or an appearance, he's always donning that mask. I never really saw him maskless. I don't think. And I haven't read all of the Marvel comics, but I've definitely read enough to see like at least a little bit of a touchstone with most of the characters. Not all, but most of them. So yeah, I think it's an interesting choice. I am hyped for Fantastic Four. I think Fantastic Four is going to be really sick. Considering that it's not an origin film, but it's going to be it's a period piece, which I'm in. Set in the, I think, the 60s or something like that. Yeah, that shit's gonna go fucking hard. I'm very much looking forward to that. So yeah, yeah, there was the Russos, and then there was Fantastic Four. Was that it? I guess that was it. Yeah, I'm kind of looking through it here. Oh, Brave New World. Yeah. Brave New World. Captain America, Brave New World. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I didn't hate Falcon and the Winter Soldier as much as some people did. I think the best episode was Truth. Where Carl Lumley came in and played the first Avenger, like technically the very first Avenger. And there's like a whole, apparently like a comic issue about that. And I thought it was such a powerful episode that sort of like was the turning point of what Falcon became and what he was, to then transition to Captain America, and I just thought that was a great transition and a phenomenal episode nonetheless. So even seeing him come back, Carl Lumley come back in Brave New World, like you see like a little bit of a thing in the trailer. I'm looking forward to it. Is it going to be promising? I don't know. Giancarlo Esposito, or as famously known as Bugging Out from Do the Right Thing, or Gus from Breaking Bad, is going to be Sidewinder. And I don't know much about Sidewinder, to be honest. Although like maybe he did show up in certain issues. I don't remember. But yeah, I thought that there was a lot of there's a lot of promise, but I don't know if it will land at all. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. And I'm kind of like over the whole like multiverse shit, and I'm kind of scared that that's what they're going to do with Doomsday, the fifth Avengers, where, RDJ comes back and he plays Doctor Doom. I'm just a little worried about it because like it again feels like they're squeezing every little bit of fucking juice that is a phenomenal character actor like Robert Downey Jr. is. And I agree, like he's a legendary actor. It's just you know, it's like has the you know, has he overstayed his welcome? We'll see. You know, 2026 is just a couple of years away. So, you know, we'll see. And anything can change too, by the way. I mean, like, we were supposed to have what, Kang, and then, you know, or the King Dynasty, and, you know, we saw how that turned out, you know, with Jonathan Majors. So yeah, I think it's it looks cool, but I don't know if it really is going to be the hype until we watch it, you know. So that's been the little you know, Marvel Deadpool Wolverine kind of episode. So yeah, you know, chime in, see, let me know what you think of Deadpool. Let me know what you think of the panel, the Marvel panel. I guess the only panel that really fucking mattered in all of Comic-Con, because it's the only coverage I see throughout Twitter and Instagram. I haven't seen any other coverage on it. You know, and if I did miss any coverage, please, like, let me know. But yeah. So without that being said, I think that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you for listening. I appreciate you. I love you. I'll see you next time. And remember, drink lots of water, you know, especially if you are stoned and you have cotton mouth. Drink that water, okay? And don't talk to strangers. Okay, bye.